Welcome to the Bigger Room Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Bender.
And I'm Mel Cobian, and today we're going to talk about how to deal with victim mentality.
This is going to be tough for some people to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people hear the word victim and even automatically, right, they're like, get super defensive, like, I'm not a victim, or just justify everything that has happened since childhood. Because let's be real, a lot of us are showing up today with how we were programmed the first 7 years of our life. It really is from those, and I think multiple studies reference that the first 7 years of your life pretty much shape the rest of your...
Oh, great. My son is 8. He's already set. Guess I don't have to do anything else.
No, let's just hope he's okay. Just kidding. But really, in your adulthood, if you don't, dig in, and maybe we share a little bit of vulnerability, which I think we have in some other previous episodes. For example, like my parents never apologized to each other in front of us as kids. They just would go on. They would give each other the silent treatment and then just kind of like move on. And they never once apologized to each other. So in my programming, I never apologized for anything. I just kind of moved on. But for my wife, it was different. For her, apologies are super important. But for me, it never meant anything. But I understand now that they're important.
So that's interesting to me that's, like one of the, I don't want to say a scar, but that's like something that you're holding from, or you were holding from your childhood as an important kind of lesson you didn't learn.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea if anybody apologized to anybody when I was younger. Like, that doesn't even stick in my head at all. I've never had any kind of like meaningful sit down with anybody where like they apologize for anything. So I probably wasn't raised with it either. At some point I kind of learned it, but it never even occurred to me either way. It wasn't like a thing for me.
Like a thing, yeah. I would say that is kind of like the staple, but it was more about like talking about your feelings. And like, so for me, I was just like, whatever happened, and I kind of would move on. I was, my defense mechanism became giving the silent treatment. It like turned into just turning away from the problem, moving on, and just like wait till the person kind of gets over it. And that's kind of like where the apology or just hearing each other out. Whereas my wife is like, why do you feel that way? How does that make you feel? And, her parents kind of helped her. Whereas for me, it was like, you have emotions, like you don't get to have those kind of things.
Down.
So shut them down. Like, you get hit and it's like, are you going to cry, or do you want me to give you a reason to cry while holding kind of like the,
oh yeah.
So it's like, that is like my first 7 years. So it's like no emotions, no apologies, just kind of move through life, deal with it. So, whereas somebody
I definitely
else
was raised the same way.
Yeah, exactly. So
there were no emotions.
no emotions, no apologies, no conversations about anything. So that's kind of how I went through life, which led to, I was such a troublemaker. I definitely got into fights. I got suspended. I got expelled from school a couple times. And I can sit here and look back and be like, wow, that kid needed a lot of attention. She needed a lot of conversation. She needed somebody to talk to, but there was just nobody there.
I think she needed more of the belt.
No, because so so I'll just run you through it. So it really was like, it's just like the things that I was told as a kid from my parents are just like the words that I would never hear my brother say to his own son today, because there's still just things you don't say. You don't say that to another human, especially your human. You just don't. So it was like the trauma of being told like you're worth nothing. So I go to school, feeling like I'm worth nothing, and then I act out, and then I'm told I'm worth nothing. So then it's like this vicious cycle of feeling like you're worth nothing. So you act out because you feel like you're worth nothing, which has the repercussion of getting suspended. And then you get what I'm saying? So it's like this vicious cycle. So all I needed was,
Oh, I get what you're saying. I was raised
yeah,
similar. I mean, but my trauma
yeah,
mostly came from my sister being older. She's 4 years older than I was, and she was constantly just beating me down physically and mentally, but
yeah,
a lot of it was mentally.
yeah,
And so that's exactly how I portrayed myself as I was growing up. I never had the coolest clothes like she did. I didn't know how to do the cool stuff like my younger brother did. She always encouraged him to do stuff. I was like, I'm like closer in age to you.
yeah,
Why aren't you doing any of that with me? Oh, yeah, no. Major, major, major trauma. And not like my parents really ever sat
yeah.
there and like, let's have a conversation about how you're feeling. That
Oh yeah, never,
that didn't even exist.
never.
And then, and when you say, you know, you better be quiet, or I'll give you something to cry, or stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. What when I was younger, these two girls, similar to my sister and my age, they lived right behind us, and we'd hop the fence, and like I was hanging out, and the one girl, she was slightly older than me, the one that was my age, and she taught me how to jump off the swing, and so you swing as high as you possibly freaking can, and then you gotta turn so your wrists are facing out, your hands are flipped, your arms are tucked in, and jump. So she taught me how to do it. I finally could do it. I was so excited. I felt amazing. And my mom was calling me in to come to dinner. And she said, "You better get in here. I'm not telling you again." I'm like, one more jump. One more jump. I was just so excited I could jump. So I'm swinging as high as I can. I got to make it a good one. It's my last jump of the day. And I turned my wrist out and I jumped. And a piece of metal on the chain link, of the swing. This is before they invented any of those nice covers that you guys grew up with. That chain, it was like kind of like not attached perfectly, and it ripped my wrist open, and I was just gushing blood everywhere. And I still have the scar from it. I was probably like 8, and I was bleeding so much. I guarantee I needed stitches. I guarantee I did, but we didn't go to the hospital for much, like anything. And so I sat at dinner crying with like a paper towel wrapped around my wrist. And I was told I better stop crying. I'm going to have something to cry about. And so I had to like sniffle through and suck it up and let that thing heal. And then people thought I was a suicide case for like most of my life because I had this giant scar across my wrist.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's what that does to your soul. And like, this is not downplaying any trauma that we all have. The topic today is staying in that victimhood mentality. Like, I grew up this way. I wasn't, staying in that victim mentality.
Staying.
Yeah.
I can laugh about my wrist being, I can laugh about my wrist being sliced open, and I can laugh, like Mel and I can laugh about the trauma that we received growing up, but because we let it go and we were able to move out of that.
Absolutely. And I know that there's a lot of people that have had maybe more deeper, more traumatizing events in their life, and we're not sitting here downplaying at all. There's a lot that I've gone through that I'm still working through, but it's from that place of I get to work through it. And I always think of a bird, and I like literally think of a bird, and I have this bird's eye view, and I'm looking down on the situation of, it's usually the past wounds, right? That we keep, again, the first 7 years of our life, and then we never kind of work through it. Maybe you need a really good cry, which I had a ton of those this year, and I never used to cry because I didn't know. I never used to cry, but through, breath work, meditations, or just even like not feeling like I could speak up for myself because I was never allowed to. I was told like, this is actually who you are, and like, that's it. And then so, with relationships and business and things come up, like you kind of are forced to overcome. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck in that victim mentality, like, oh, I could never start a business because I don't know how to speak up for myself, right? So whatever you say you can't do, there's a reason why. There's a reason why you feel that way. And maybe you have those feelings where you get, knots in your throat or knots in your stomach, and it's probably most likely related to those situations that you had once upon a time, but they're keeping you in that victim mentality. And until you deal with it and acknowledge it, maybe have that good cry, you're going to stay there.
Yeah. Now, for listeners that have been listening to us for a long time, you probably have heard me mention this before, but my biggest release of the victim mentality that I didn't even know was weighing me down, and the one that absolutely 100% changed my entire life last January, was, again, my sister. She fucked me up so good. And I continuously blamed her, and every single time I was with her, which is often because my family, we all hang out together still, I would just hear like every little jab, and even people around. It's not that I made this up. She does do it. And people are like, Jill, I know you know this better than anybody, but, because I see her do this to you. But it was in January, I listened to this mindset book that I am currently re-listening to. So let me give you guys the name of this one, because this is the one that changed my life. And it gets a little woo-woo and hokey. Maybe not even woo-woo. It gets way out there. To where I have to kind of like force myself to stay focused on what he's saying. So if you listen to it and you get to a point where you're like, what the heck? Where is this guy going? What does this have to do with what I'm here for? Just keep going. Just make yourself listen. Take note of all the things he's saying, because this is the one that changed my entire life. It's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. It's by Joseph Murphy.
Yeah.
So when I listened to that book last January and realized that I had to release what I was holding with my sister, and it was a victim mindset. It was victim mentality. And once I finally released that and let that go, that's when everything was able to come to me. All the good things were able to come to me. That very next month is when I had my highest gross, it was a $47,000 month that I had earned. And I truly believe it was because I finally let that huge weight off my chest. And every family event since has been so much more enjoyable, because none of it bothers me. She still does her little jabs. She didn't change. Yeah, it just changed the way I responded to it and how it affected me.
Yeah. Well, and I look at jabs that happen as a reminder. I see it as like, this is just like a little video game, and then these objections are coming up into your life to see if you're gonna allow it to take your power away. Are you gonna allow it to give your power again? It's just those little reminders from the universe, like, oh, Jill seems to have her stuff together. Let's throw a little curveball to see if we knock her down or she's truly risen above it. It happens to me all the time with, because I'm gay. It happens all the time. I have people that DM me, or, stuff that just happens. And like, depending on how I'm doing in my mindset, I just like shake it off. It's like, oh, you know what? The universe is just testing me, and just reminding myself again, like, self-love is what I'm here to conquer. And that's when I pull myself into that bird's eye view, is like, what am I supposed to learn from this? Right. So I look back to every trauma that has happened, and what has helped me overcome the victimhood of it is, what was I supposed to learn? If I'm just a soul here and we're here to evolve, what was I supposed to learn? And time again, I think my toughest lesson is self-love and unconditional love. And you said something very important, and it was the subconscious mind when you were talking about the book, because that is the mental side of things. And for a lot of people, maybe you have like the mindset, maybe you have the mental thing down, but maybe for you it's an emotional or a physical thing, in the sense like maybe you have a lot of body aches, and that's just a manifestation of emotions that you're holding on to. And then you have the knee pain, the back pain, everything hurts, you feel lethargic. Figure out why that is, because sometimes the body holds on to it. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it talks about exactly that. The body does keep score.
Referencing back to this book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, he talks about and has so many examples of people that have crazy illnesses. Like, there was a doctor, I think in the 1800s, and he used to perform amputations, and it was they said, and we'll never know obviously, but they said 100% of his patients didn't feel any pain, even though it was before the invention of anesthesia. And it was because the doctor, before performing the surgery, sat there and put their people into a hypnotic state and basically made them believe they were going to feel no pain through this, and they felt no pain because he got it into their subconscious mind.
Okay.
And so if you have, I get goosebumps right now. If you have some kind of health thing, then pick this book up. One thing that stands out in my mind: last year I went to Disneyland with another couple and their son, and that was me and my son. And since I hit like 38 years old, I'll just throw that number out there, I noticed that I get dizzy on roller coasters, and I hate it. I never had that. I mean, I'd spend the summer, my mom would drop me off in the morning, I'd be there all day, we get picked up when it got dark out at a theme park. And I started getting dizzy on roller coasters. I'm like, well, this sucks. I hate this. So when we went to Disneyland, I brought Dramamine, and I was like, I got to take this before we even get to ride so it'll kick in. And then my friend that was with, she was like, yeah, I might need to borrow some of that. And her husband was like, no, you don't. It's all in your mind. You only get dizzy because it's in your mind. But he wasn't telling me that. He wasn't giving me this little piece of information that he was just telling his wife, like, just get it out of your head right now. It's all in your head. It's all made up in your head. So don't even think about it, and you're not going to have it. And I was like, oh, crap. I'm here with my stupid Dramamine, and all I had to do was realize that it was my subconscious mind making me get dizzy. And so I actually just threw a bottle of expired Dramamine out yesterday. Because I'm not getting that anymore. I'm done with that.
Yeah. So dealing with victim mentality, the hardest thing I think is to even admit that you are a victim. But to rise above it, you have to be willing to give yourself the love first, because when you became a victim to something is you gave your power away. And maybe you were too young. I mean, when you're a kid and you're told these things, that is the truth that you know at that time. And it's not until you get older and maybe you don't, so some things that I was told, and this is how I love working with aspiring entrepreneurs, because I know that there's just that little rebel inside of us that knows that we're meant for more than to live an average life. But as a kid, at least, like, and this is also like breaking generational trauma, you guys. You have to be the change that does better, do better, let's do better. And I was told money was evil. People who have money, the comments that, so a lot of my family does not know what I do because, first of all, they don't deserve to. They don't get to. But they make comments when people buy their second home, when they buy their third home. They have comments about it like, oh, if I had that much money, I would give it all away. And they talk about how money is evil and all this stuff. Like, nobody should.
When they say they give it all away, do you just say, oh, shit?
I just
that first thing came to mind.
Well, it's poor mentality. Like, there's victim mentality, but there's also poor mentality, and that is poor mentality, because we know you need to fill your cup up first.
I have to tell you something.
Go ahead.
My son the other day, everything that my son had for years of my son, like half of his life, I have been working on building this empire with my online business, right? And including last year with all my success and all the amazing things that my son has seen, and he understands, or I feel like he understands. He even has his own YouTube channel. And this morning he said something on the way. He said, Mom, I know we're always going to have a lot of money. I'm like, we are? And he's like, yeah, because we're putting in a lot of hard work right now to make sure that we do later. I'm like, you're right. And I know he's talking about, he's doing his YouTube channel. He knows what I do. But last week, I was so shocked because we were in the car and I said something about rich people or whatever. He's like, but rich people are mean. I'm like, what? What, Ryder? Every single thing that I have talked to you and exposed you to and everything, where would you get such a poor mindset? Where would that come from? And he's like, Mom.
Yeah.
I said, do you know any mean rich people? Like, you know people with money. Are they mean? And he's like, no. He said, do you want to know why I said that? And I'm like, please, I do. I really do. Because it fired me up. Like, I fast reacted. And he said it's because in the cartoons, he's like, every cartoon I have, they're always mean. And I'm like, okay, that was a good innocent 8-year-old mistake. Taught to him by
cartoons.
Think
about that. Yeah, well, Mr. Krabs taught us that, from SpongeBob. So you have the parents, right, that do the parenting, that have their opinions out loud, that hang out with family and really talk crap about everybody else. There's literally no mindset masterminding going on. And they just talk crap and how much they hate their life. At least my family does. And then you have the cartoons that do the programming, right? It's a program that programs your children. So that's
Scrooge McDuck.
I don't know who that is.
It's Donald Duck's uncle. The greedy mo. He's got tons of money.
Yeah, it's you grow up and then you have music, and so there really is a lot of programming that goes on. But then, I knew I was that rebel. I knew I was here for a good time, and I knew that I was here to empower people, and I knew that since I was a little kid. I knew it. I was such a smart kid, but I was always bullied by adults. I was never bullied by kids, but I was bullied by adults. And there was a lot of victim mentality that I held on to, like, this doesn't happen to people like me. This doesn't happen to people like us. Or I could never do this because of my circumstances. Then now I'm like, I am so grateful that my parents immigrated. I am so grateful that they did, because I would not be able to do what I'm doing today. A lot of things happen, and if they had stayed in Mexico, who knows? I would still be alive. Just like there's just a lot of crazy stuff that has happened to my family members. So things like that, right? It's I can sit here and complain, but then at the same time, it's I am so grateful about my circumstances, because everything that has happened in my life, like I mentioned earlier, at the end of the day, if I pull back and I'm writing a book about my life, I'm I was here to learn self-love. And that's the thing, you guys, you get to do whatever you want on this life. You don't know about a past life if you believe in that, and you don't know about what you're going to come back and do if you believe in that. If this is what you get, something I saw the other day, Jill, that blew my mind is people think that middle age is 50, but if the average person lives to the age of 75, middle age is closer to 40. And I was like, oh my gosh, did people realize this? Because I don't know what people are waiting for. If you're waiting for that special person to come into your life and make things easier, it's never going to happen. You are in control.
Oh, God.
Nobody's going to do the work for you. Yeah, nobody's going to spend money on your behalf. Nobody's going to eat food on your behalf. Nobody's going to work out for you on your behalf. And the most important pillars in life are your relationships, your health, your wealth, living life, having fun, being present. So you can't be present because you're stuck having anxiety about the future, or you're stuck in the past depressed about everything that happened, aka the victim mentality, and it's why you can't move forward.
We're
You need
having
to pull back.
anxiety or having anxiety about your family. When maybe you're going to visit your family and and you start dreading, what so-and-so is going to say about something. Let it go. Who cares? It's on them. If they have something to say, if they have a promise, something, it always comes from them. There's something going on internally with themselves, and it makes them feel better to try and put that onto you because they don't want to stay in their little miserable state alone.
Oh yeah. The initial response is to criticize, and maybe you guys have an amazing family, and oh my gosh, like, please don't take our energy and our experiences, but notice that we've transmuted it. We use it almost as a fuel to rise above, to teach, our circle better, to break that generational trauma.
Yeah.
But like, same with my family has just dragged me up and down because of my marriage to my wife, right? I grew up Catholic, so there's that. And they have their feelings and opinion. But then I can go into that and, first of all, distance yourself, cut cords, cut people out. Don't be afraid. I can sit here and say that because their love for me was conditional. Because when this happened, when I married my wife, the love for me became conditional. I was no longer worthy of it. So it's easy for me to sit here and tell you and empower myself by saying I cut cords with everybody, to include my parents. So I guess I have nothing to lose, so it's easy for me to say, but it wasn't easy, right? So what in your life are you still holding on to that you need to cut cords with so that you can rise above the mentality? So the first thing that helped me transmute all this energy in my life and getting away was doing that exercise of rising above. So for me, is I just closed my eyes and I started writing down how I felt and why I felt that way, and what goals I had and the reasons that I felt I couldn't accomplish them. And I would just write it down. Right? Don't judge yourself why you feel that way. So some of you, if you're trying to build a business, why do you feel you're not worthy of it? Why do you maybe think you can't do it? So a lot of you have a lot of false beliefs. So that's the first thing, is what false beliefs do you have? And then write them down.
When you're writing it down, I mean, you gotta be very truthful with yourself. Don't sugarcoat anything. You're the only one that's reading this. So get it out as honestly as you can, but then write it down. Why are you so afraid of this? What, not so much why are you so afraid, but what is gonna happen if you release whatever you're releasing? Where is this coming from that you think? So for me, my sister example, I had to sit there and say, okay, so if I finally change the way if I forgive her and no longer care about what she thinks, what is that going to do? Is that going to hurt me in any way? Am I going to die from it? Is there going to be something major that's going to, change in a negative way? So there's got to be a reason you're afraid to allow that change. So I would try and write that down as well. What are you so afraid of if you make that adjustment? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, something that came to my mind, because people have emotions, like we have emotions, but other people have emotions about you. And the most important thing that I've learned, because, in my circle or my family, with my example, they all have opinions and emotions, but that's their learning lesson to deal with in this life. There's something for them to learn. So let go of what lessons they need to learn on this lifetime, or they're not going to evolve. They don't get to be a part of your life and see who you get to become. So please don't worry about other people's feelings. And for some of you, that may sound cold, but honestly, you're here to live your best life. You don't know anyone, anything.
Yeah. And like Mel said, that's on them. So I'm just going to keep going back to my example, but it was a huge transformation for me. It was what I always said was, well, my sister needs to learn to be nicer. My sister needs to stop picking at me. My sister needs to do this. It wasn't up to my sister ever. I'm not going to change her. It's not going to happen. It wasn't, I need to sit down and tell her how I really feel, because we didn't grow up with feelings. So that would not work anyway. It was,
Yeah.
it was me. I had to release it myself. I couldn't allow anybody else to help me, including the person that I felt like was tormenting me for 47 years of my life. Well, it happened when I was 45. For 45 years of my life, it's all you, guys. It is you. So if your sentence starts with, well, in order for me to do this, they have to do something, that is not what we're trying to drive home right now. Yeah. Listen to this episode again. No, that's definitely not.
Yeah. To put it clearly, if someone makes you feel something, it's because you're not giving yourself something. If somebody hurts your feelings, you're not giving yourself love. If somebody makes you mad, you're not giving yourself compassion. Nothing that you feel is outside of you. Unconditional love starts within. If you cannot sit here and, feel everything and understand that at the end of the day, the most important relationship is loving yourself. I had a very hard time, looking at myself in the mirror and saying, I love you to myself, because it felt like nobody else, right? Everything was conditional toward me. So that's how I know that's my learning lesson on this life. So please understand that nothing is outside of you. Nobody's going to fix you. We need to do the hard work for ourselves. So can't stress that enough. So that's the mental of it all, right? So there's 3 steps to this. So the first step, as we kind of really emphasized it, is that mental aspect of writing it down, being raw, honest. And then we move into more of how do we begin to align our emotions to what we want to feel. And if you haven't already, make sure you check out our episode on why your manifestations aren't working, because it really is now starting to tap in. It's okay, this is the baggage that I need to sort out without judgment, and I'm going to do that. So at the same time, it's what are my goals? Be unapologetic, because you guys are so practical with your goals. And I can see that it's because you have probably some victim mentality that you need to work through. But when you're a kid, right, Jill, you had the most wild goals, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then you wanted to do a million things. And it's not until adults tell you, you can't do that, or that's never going to happen. You can't make money with that, right? Let go of everything you wanted to conditioned to.
Yeah, so I wanted to work in the movie industry. And my mom always got excited about it. She didn't encourage it, but she didn't ever put it down. It was just kind of okay, yeah, do that. That'd be so cool. Dream big with me. But then when I lived at the family I had nannied for a little bit, and I looked up to the mom. She's my idol, smartest lady I knew at the time. And I remember she said, well, what do you want to go to school for? Because I was switching colleges, and I said, I want to make movies. She's like, that is not a realistic make a bunch of money kind of thing. That is a few and far between who's going to make it big or whatever. And it was oh, okay, then I guess I'll go for business, which I hated. I hated business, and that's when I ended up graduating, with a degree that I hated. And now it's kind of funny, because once I started making YouTube, Instagram, all the videos that I'm in and I'm on and I'm editing and I'm doing everything, my mom said to me, Jill, isn't it so funny? You always wanted to make movies and do all that stuff. And in a way, you're doing those things now. It's I manifested so many years ago. And now it indirectly, in a different way, it still happened. It still found me, even though I got steered off for many years.
I love that. That's came back full circle. Yeah. So truly write down, if our life is a movie, you're the director, you get to write the script, you get to hire the people. What will your life look like? What experiences do you want to achieve? What contributions do you want to make? right? We want to receive, but we want to give back as well. Just writing down, being unapologetic, like maybe you want to write a book, maybe you want to direct a movie one day. Whatever it is, let go of the monetary, tap into what would make you happy. And I think a lot of people struggle with like, what's my purpose? This is where it's going to start pouring. This is where it's going to start pouring, because there's a version of you that already knows. You're just afraid. So be unapologetic, whatever that looks like. You deserve it. You are worthy. That's the second thing. And then lastly, we have to do the physical part. So we got the mental, the emotional, and the physical is now moving into life with that knowing of I am worthy. I am here to learn stuff. And then I'm going to evolve and I'm going to take action and move forward. So after you figure out what your life wants to look like, that's the beauty of the universe. Doors start opening. Next thing you know, you're going to see something come across your page that is in alignment with what you're trying to do. Maybe all of a sudden there's that job opening of that dream job you desire to have. That is how it works. But until you connect the mind with your heart, the physical manifestations of things are not going to happen. I'm just going to tie it in with, I know maybe for some of you guys, this is like some woo-woo stuff because, manifestation is what spiritual people believe in, but religious people call it prayer. Atheists call it a placebo effect or a coincidence. Scientists call it quantum physics. But at the end of the day, nobody denies it. So align your mind, your heart, and your body. Be intentional, and you will receive what you want.
And on that note, we thank you so much for spending time with us today on the Bigger Room podcast, and we will see you next time.